Welcome to the Creative Plan Podcast Network. Join us as we share our favorite RPGs, one-shot games, tabletop games, reviews of items, and convention panels, and other exciting things that we run into from time to time. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Kelly, aka Trixie from Ragnarok and Roll, a Sign to Ragnarok story, and Tilda Wimblewick from D&D Journey of the 5th Edition. First off, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for listening to our varied adventures, as well as for rating us on iTunes and RPGpodcast.com. If you haven't rated us yet, we would greatly appreciate it if you could. And if you're looking for more ways to support our efforts, we are now on Patreon, a great site where you can help us continue making more podcasts, as well as some special surprises for our patrons. If you can, please look us up at www.patreon.com/cppn. Every little bit helps. And again, thank you for listening.
Even you delightful creature. All right. Laura, would you like to start us off?
Okay. Hi, welcome to our Steampunk book recommendations panel. I'm Laura Folmer.
Hey, we're going to close those doors. No one smells paint anymore?
No, I think
We're clear? Okay.
So that we don't have that? Yeah. I'm Laura Folmer, and when Madame Askew asked me to do this panel, I was very excited about it, and then I looked at who all was on the panel with me, and I'm like, well, this is the Laura Feels Inadequate panel. Because I'm on this panel with Madame Askew and two authors. And I'm just me. But I was asked to find,
Hi, my name is Madeleine Holly-Rosing. I am the writer-creator of the Steampunk Supernatural series, Boston Metaphysical Society.
I'm David Lee Summers, and by day I write things like Steampunk, probably best known for my Clockwork Legion series, Owl Dance, and my latest is a novella called Breaking the Code, out from eSpec Books. And by night I operate telescopes at Kitt Peak National Observatory, and where I was till 6 a.m. this morning, and then got a very short nap, and I'm here. So hopefully I make sense.
So far, so good. And don't worry, I'll always make you sound better.
Excellent. I know you will. And I will say, actually, Laura, you are to us, the writers, the VIP on this panel, because you're one of the readers that we value so much.
Not only a reader, but a teacher and a mentor of young people. So, a perfect representative. I am Madame Askew. I am Askew. I am a tremendous reader and a comedian and time traveller, and I've been running a steampunk book club for almost a dozen years. And hello, Lady Junesville in the back, who's like one of the OG steampunk book club members. So I went from running an in-person book club to running a virtual book club with my friend Bill Bardin, who helps organize and do all the book club things online. So we've been doing that the entirety of the lockdown and pandemic. Woo! Sign up books. All right. See, I told you I'd make you feel better.
Excellent.
So this was a conversation that started with me and Bill Bardin through the course of running our book club, and we thought it's very important to support and uplift our authors because we really want them to write more things, and we've heard the best way is to actually promote their works and buy them or get them from the library. And so we thought, wouldn't it be nice to actually talk about that at a convention and also get our author friends to talk about some of their favorites. Madeleine, would you like to start us off a bit?
I certainly can. Remember what I wrote. So I had a long drive yesterday. Actually, one of the first, Dexter and Sinister by Keith Dickinson. He's a UK author who, I'm trying to remember, I think we met each other on Twitter, of all things. A lot of times is I just say hello and I follow people and say nice things to them and don't get into fights online, which is very helpful. And I picked up his book. It's essentially about a mechanical cat and his detective partner, and they make a detective team. And They're both hired to look into some shady goings-on at the airship factory, and the investigation has barely begun before people start dying. Soon he's on the wrong side of some fairly unpleasant people, and that's before he meets Dexter, the world's only talking, walking, mechanical cat. That's when things get complicated. This is what I would call much more traditional steampunk fare set in the UK. There's no paranormal elements going on. Social structure is very hard, in line. But it was utterly charming, and the characters and the supporting characters I just absolutely loved. And I know Keith, he has a little newsletter out there, and trying to drum up like a lot of indie authors, and myself included, like hello, I'm here. But yeah, I would highly recommend Keith's book. He's also a really nice guy, which is also helpful. Should I just go through my list, or
Would you like to, or do you want to take turns?
we can take turns? Let's take turns. It's more fun.
Is it Laura? Why don't you dive in?
Okay.
You can see who the bossy one is, by the way.
I was asked to find recommendations for children and young adult type steampunk books, and which is great because being a teacher and having a lot of little people in my life, I like to read a lot of children's books, and so I cheated a little bit because I was asked to find 5 books to recommend, but pretty much all of mine are series, or at least have other books by the same author that I can also recommend. So the first one on my list is The Hunchback Assignments by Arthur Slade, and it's about this boy who he was found as a very young child. He has a mysterious power that he can change his shape, and no one knows where this power comes from. He was discovered in a traveling freak show, and he was rescued by Mr. Socrates, not his real name. And he names the little boy Moto and raises him and trains him to become a spy, a secret agent in his organization. And so there's 4 books. I think there's only 4? Yeah, there's 4 books in this series. And they fight against the villainous Clockwork Guild. And it kind of takes them all over the world, under the sea. And I really liked the books. I thought they were very engaging.
Yeah, I actually had that on my list as well. Arthur's really nice. I'm on his newsletter. I've actually chatted with him a couple of times, and the series itself had been optioned for development, but I think ran into development hell, as they often do, and I don't know what happened with that. But I believe he took back the U.S. rights and then republished them and self-published them again. And I think the original traditional publisher, I don't remember which publisher it was, kept the Canadian rights. But yes, it's a great YA, lots of fun, interesting, great conflict.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's something that you could give to, your 8-year-old and feel good about it. So, yeah.
So for me, what I came to this with was I wanted to lift up some of the indie and small press publishers that I know, because I am an indie publisher myself, and I've enjoyed working over the years with a lot of small presses, and so I wanted to highlight them. The hard part for me when I was presented with put 5 on the list was only 5.
That's why I cheated.
Yes, and so I'm actually gonna cheat here on the panel for a minute and mention a couple that aren't on my list.
Do cheat. We like cheating.
But partly because one of them is here in the room, and that's I'm going to talk about the Empires of Steam and Rust series, which is a wonderful set of small of novellas, and Robert E. Vardaman has the first book essentially in the series. I have one of the books in the series. There's Stephen Sullivan and Sarah March. Yeah, my brain, my sleep deprived brain is at work here.
And I believe we read yours in book club.
Yes.
And it was fantastic.
Revolution of Aaron Rust is mine in the series.
Yeah.
And I was also going to briefly give a shout out to The Tales of Gear World by Patrick Thomas. Patrick Thomas is an author I've worked with for many years in Tales of the Talisman magazine, and have always really loved his stories. He has a new series coming out soon that I also am fortunate enough to have a story in called Agents of the Abyss, so watch for that. That's going to be sort of have steampunk elements, but it's actually set all through history. So, and then I will just move into my first one on the list, which is Beyond the Rails by Jack Tyler. Jack is a person I met through an online book club, and what really grabbed me about this was it was basically a collection of tales about an airship doing cargo deliveries in Africa, and the fact that so little steampunk gets set in places like Africa. It was just wonderful to see this, and it was just a delightful, fun read.
Well, I love that magic segue, because my first book I wanted to recommend is Ever Fair by Nisi Scholl, and it is also set in Africa. It's actually an alternative history approach to the period in Africa in which King Leopold and the Belgians were doing truly unspeakable, atrocious acts in the Congo. And one of the things I look for in steampunk is sort of new perspectives. I read so much steampunk, and I am passionate about showing a spotlight on small and indie publishers, but also shining a spotlight on areas of steampunk that do not often get explored. So this is, I think, one of the most beautiful steampunk books I've ever read in terms of the prose. Really exceptional. It's got a huge cast of fascinating, deep, three-dimensional characters. It is a complicated story. If you want just something that's just going to be feel good and easy, this is not the book for you right now. But it is a book that I think everyone should read because it is deeply engaging. The world is so real. It just drew me into her world building, and they have a facility for how they use history that really made it feel palpable. And I'm familiar with some of the history, the Fabians, Marcus Garvey, the Back to Africa movement in the 19th century, all very important actual history that does not often get taught. But the way they use it, the author uses it, is particularly compelling. And so I love it for that exploration of history. For like the technology that Nisi Scholl develops is also really fascinating. So it's an excellent use of rubber and steam and airships, and also using the indigenous culture in that area around the Congo to great effect for storytelling. So it's long, it's intense, it's beautiful. Give it a try. Yeah.
Well, segueing off of that,
perfect.
I'm currently listening to an audiobook series called the Dandelion Dynasty series by Ken Liu. Now, this is set in a fictitious island nation. It is based on Asian folklore, and also, I mean, he's done extensive research on the technology, and then built upon the technology. If you're a tech person, oh my God, the technology and the way the battle sequences are. I'm sorry, this is the first time I have read or heard a battle sequence between airships and the equivalent of dragons. And it frickin' rocks. It is one of the best battle sequences I have probably ever read. And we're talking about two groups of people, one that is more Asian-based, heavy in a hierarchical caste system, but does research, big technology base, fighting against a group of people who are invading, who are traditionally nomadic, sort of a combination of Viking and a Mongol people merged together. And they are also brilliant in their own way. And they also treat their women a lot better than the Asian side, if you want to call it Asian. But yeah, what they do with the airships, and I'm sorry, I listened to that thing and I was going like, oh my god, through the whole thing. So basically, this is from the Amazon blurb. Wily, charming Kunigaru, a bandit and stern, fearless Matazindu, the son of a deposed duke, seem like polar opposites. Yet in the uprising against the emperor, the two quickly become the best of friends after a series of adventures fighting against vast conscripted armies, silk-draped airships, and shape-shifting gods. Once the emperor has been overthrown, however, they each find themselves the leader of separate factions, two sides with very different ideas about how the world should be run and the meaning of justice. So this would be what I think genre we call it silk punk. But it, like I said, I'm in the third book. The airship battle happens in the second book, but yeah.
And he's quite the writer too. Like he writes the heck out of things. He's
done a lot of translations too.
Oh, I did not know.
I think he did the English translation of which is one that Hugo.
Yeah, Three-Body Problem.
Thank you. Three-Body Problem. Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic.
What was the author's name again?
Ken Liu, Liu.
Laura?
Okay, the next one on my list is called The Girl with the Ghost Machine. It's by Laura Stefano, and she also has a few other books that I really liked, but this one is the most steampunk. It's about a little girl whose mother dies, and her father becomes obsessed with building this machine to bring her back, to the point where she's basically lost her father too. She's pretty much caring for herself as a little girl, and she finally decides that she's either going to make the machine work or break it, because she needs at least one parent back. And so she goes to work on the machine herself, and that's where the most of the plot happens. So, and it's very interesting, and I like that it's also very character driven, and like a lot of children's books, the character finds a lot out about themselves along the way as well.
Thank you.
Well, the next book on my list was actually another one that was discussed at the Steampunk Book Club, and actually the author has come and spoken to the book club virtually. This is Karen J. Carlisle from Australia, and the book I have is The Department of Curiosities for the Good of the Empire, which was just a delightful, very traditional kind of steampunk book with about the Department of Curiosities is essentially the keepers of secrets of the Empire, and we have, I'll just read the blurb. Miss Matilda Merriweather has a secret. Actually, she has several. One of them has shaped her adult life. Another now controls it. Her Majesty Queen Victoria has control of the Empire. She is the Empire and creator of its secrets. Sir Avery works for the Department of Curiosities, the keeper of secrets, especially if they are useful to the Empire. When Tilly finds herself in the employment of the Department of Curiosities, she realizes this is the perfect opportunity to uncover the truth she has been searching for. But the Queen has other plans for her. And it was just a many-layered, wonderful, fun book. Which is
hear the dun 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 dun.
Exactly, and all of Karen's books are that way. I've been delighted with all of her all the books I've read from her. And another person that I just met online through basically a Steampunk online group, and we've communicated back and forth and shared resources. I think that's just one of sometimes just keeping your eyes open for these people out and about is a great way to discover some excellent reads.
So, thank you, David. Yeah, Karen is a
Yeah, she is.
is alive. So I'm going to share something that would actually pair very well with Ken's works, and that is The Sea is Ours, which was published through a Kickstarter quite a few years ago now. It is a steampunk anthology set in Southeast Asia, written by Southeast Asian authors, and is produced by two fantastic editors, Jamie Go and Joyce Chun. Jamie used to run the multicultural Beyond Victoriana Multiculturalism for Steampunk website, which was one of my favorite resources for getting more information and more of a sense of what steampunk could be if I wanted to explore that, and I do, frankly. So this is a really gorgeous anthology, wonderful stories. They run the gamut of different flavors. So if you don't like something, you might like something else. That's one of the things I love about an anthology, and I get to meet a lot of new authors that way. But one of the things I particularly love about this is no one feels like steampunk has to be brown, and that you have to have a certain kind of engine or a certain kind of vehicle. The technology is innovative, interesting, organic, and sometimes poignant and poetic too. So there's a thing about flying whales that is...
that's one of my favorite stories.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah, the flying whales are like a dirt, but I'm sure it comes from folklore.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
So highly recommend. I know you can still get it as a digital book. I don't know that you can still get a physical copy, but it's a fantastic read.
Yeah, and the Easter Island story.
Oh.
Yeah.
I laughed, I cried.
Those two are my favorite.
But yeah, so good. Oh, the whales though.
Yeah, the end of the whale story was like, oh. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right. Oh, right in the fields, as the young people say. So. Well, Laura, we keep putting you at the beginning of the line. Would you like to switch it up? Do you mind?
No, I'm good.
Okay, good.
I can go again.
All right.
The next one on my list is Seer of Shadows. It's by Avi, and I know if you have kids or grandkids that you've probably read or heard of Avi because he's written a lot of things. This one though I really loved, and I actually ran a game based on what happens in the book. It's about an apprentice photographer. His name is Horace, and he is employed by a slightly less than upstanding photographer, and this guy wants him to help create spirit photographs, which was really a thing in the Victorian era. I've done quite a bit of research on it, but this wealthy woman, her daughter is deceased, and so they're going to take. He tells Horace to take pictures if he sees any pictures of the girl in the house, and then they can superimpose them into the photographs later. But Horace discovers that he actually has a supernatural ability that actually captures spirits on film, like for reals. And it's a very interesting concept, and I really loved it. It was a really good book, and it's a very fast read, again, for middle grade kids, but anyone would love it.
But and I to pose briefly, that is a great segue into your own work, Madeleine. Isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I know you're not here to
like,
recommend your work,
Yes.
but I will. Honestly, your Boston Metaphysical Society is fantastic.
Thank you. It has a spirit photographer in it. That's why she mentions it.
Yes.
So, yes.
I'm not subtle.
Yes, she's one of our main characters. Yes, Caitlin O'Sullivan.
So good, yeah. I really am absolutely obsessed now. So, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is my turn. Back to more traditional series. I'm sure many of you have heard of Shelley Adina. and her Magnificent Devices series, and I believe she's segueing into an Edwardian series that's like Devices series. But yeah, the blurb is, at 17, Claire Trevelyan, daughter of Viscount St. Ives, was expected to do nothing more than pour an elegant cup of tea, sew a fine seam, and catch a rich husband. Unfortunately, Claire's talents lie not in the ballroom, but in the chemistry lab, where things have a regrettable habit of blowing up. When her father gambles the estate on the combustion engine and loses, Claire finds herself down and out on the mean streets of London. But being a young woman of resources and intellect, she turns fortune on its head. And this is absolutely charming and fun series. And then there's the chickens. There's lots of chickens in here. And I actually interviewed Shelley for my newsletter a number of years ago. And I just said, "What's up with the chickens?" And she has pet chickens at home. She adores chickens, and they're like gorgeous. And if you follow her on Facebook, you get lots of chicken pictures. But yes, it is a very fun, obviously female-driven, and sometimes the stories go ways I don't like them to go, but this one does go in a nice place. And and yeah, there's lots of great conflict. She doesn't always win, which is a good thing. But yeah, it's utterly charming and really fun. And if you're looking for something a little more on the light side, yeah, this not that that's not in a negative thing, but if you just you need something nice on your brain for a while, this is a good series to go. I think there's like 12 books in it now. She just keeps on going.
We're clearly going to have to read them for themselves. Because we haven't yet.
Oh,
Magically,
you should.
somehow.
You should, and you'll love her.
Excellent.
Thank you. At your meeting, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
Well, my next book kind of brings both of these ideas together, so it's a wonderful segue right there. We have a little bit of magic, a little bit of spiritualism, a little bit of a coming-of-age story in The Clockwork Witch by Michel de Saunier, which was published by eSpec Books. And essentially, it starts out feeling a little like it's going to be a Harry Potter-esque type story with a young woman who is coming of age in a very magical society, except it doesn't appear that she has any magical abilities until she discovers that she has a hitherto undiscovered magical ability, which is the ability to control machines through magic. Hence the Clockwork Witch. And so it's just, again, it was just one of those just very engrossing stories, and she has a second book in that series, and everything I've read by Michelle, I've just absolutely adored.
Actually, we do have her schedules for reading
Excellent.
this year. I'm very excited. We love the good people at eSpec. They're fantastic. They do great books. And I think she's got a third one coming out.
Actually, I think you're right. Yes,
Yeah.
I think they're either kickstarting it now or they're getting ready to kickstart
Yes.
it. Danielle has a whole line of Kickstarters
So
in the
much.
queue this year, so
I need to shine a little light on that. So mine is has witch in the title, but is otherwise very different. That is Witchmark by C.L. Polk, which some people might go, "Oh, that's not steampunk. Where's the steam?" Well, there are definitely things powered by steam, but also magic and queerness. And it's Edwardian, and so good. And honestly, there are many things I love about this, but I could probably wrap myself in the prose, just roll around decadently, just rub the pages. No, that's very. But it's such a beautiful book, and the central character, just from the moment I meet him on the page, I just wanted to know about him, what was going on, and he elicits so much empathy from me. He is a queer man in a time, in an alternative world in which that is something that is pretty not okay, and he has to keep that on the down low. But also there's other secrets that he's grappling with that are kind of big, and his family is like disappointed in him, but I love that. And so there's a little found family and a little fingering his nose at the establishment and a little skullduggery, and just it's part of a series and it's wonderful. And I do not feel like it got enough love, so give it a try. Yeah.
What was the title?
That is Witchmark by C.L. Polk.
And it's a trilogy.
And it's a trilogy, and it's beautiful. So, yeah, fantastic book. All right, Laura, we're back to you.
Back to you.
I was very speedy because I got a little bit Twitter-pated.
Okay, the next one on my list is called Cabinet of Earths, and there's 2 books in this series. The other one is called The Box of Gargoyles. The author's name is Anne Nesbitt. It's about a girl named Maya, and her mother has had cancer, and then her father gets this mysterious letter from the Society of Philosophical Chemistry in Paris, and is granting him a fellowship for the year, and they're paying for their move and for the apartment in Paris and all of these things. And so Maya's mother has always wanted to live in Paris. Their family is from there, so they decide to go. And once there, then her family, she starts delving into their family history and finds a bunch of connections to, there's a cousin who is almost invisible, like seriously no one knows she's there. Even if she speaks, she has a hard time getting people's attention. And there's a man with purple eyes that follows her and her brother around the city, and it's kind of scary. And then there's a man who is like a great uncle or cousin who guards a cabinet that's filled with these tiny bottles of colored earths and sands, and it seems to call to Maya, and she really wants to go to it and like jump into it almost. And so it's her adventure finding out how all of these things are connected and saving her family. It's a really cool story.
Okay, your turn. My turn. Going back to outside the UK and the United States, The Master of Gin by P. Djeli Clark. Everyone's going,
You know, I was going to put it on my list, and I thought, no, I want more books. So we're gonna let Madeleine. It's such a beautiful book that is so good.
Yeah, no, it was, and I see that Bill had put another novella, The Black God's Drums, by the same author. That has nothing to do with The Master of Gin, but it's fabulous. The
So
Black
good.
God's Drums is just that's
I love both of those.
freaking awesome.
And honestly, everything he writes is so good.
Yeah, Master of Gin is a spin-off of his novella, was The Haunting of Tramp Car, something.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
A Dungeon in Cairo and then The Haunting of Tramcar. Number.
It was like,
It's an important number, but I can't remember the number.
yeah, it's just like in one.
015.
015. Thank you.
you. But in short, Cairo, 1912. The Fatima al-Sha'arawi is the youngest woman working for the Ministry of Alchemy, Enchantments, and Supernatural Entities. She's certainly not a rookie, especially after preventing the destruction of the universe last summer. So yeah, this has some, what I would call some classical steampunk elements, particularly in, what's the Year of the World? Yeah, that's within the Bureau of Alchemy, the Ministry. Lots of mechanical things going on. Also a queer-based relationship, and really interesting characters. And it was really fun to read. And it was interesting because of like the bad guy here. He did a really good job of like, okay, that's not really the bad guy. There's the other, it's a nice little red herrings throughout the book, and you're really wondering, okay, how is she gonna fix it this time? Yes. How is you really don't know, and well, I'm not gonna ruin it for you. So go read it.
But also read on a full stomach because that book made me so hungry with all the food scenes.
There's a lot of food scenes.
And they're really good. I love North Africa anyway, and I just wanted to go eat a lot.
Yeah, but the fundamental, he essentially did the same thing. In Boston Metaphysical, I use the breaking off point from American history. I use the War of 1812. What he does is there's a breakthrough to another parallel universe, and all these magical beings come through, and Cairo is able to overthrow English domination and is now one of the most powerful nations on Earth. He uses that little crux and change in history to change the timeline.
It's fantastic. Like, you have people from Germany coming to bend on the supplicant knee to Cairo. Please support our technology. It's just a fantastic twist.
It's a
Who's
nice
the
little
author
twist.
on this again? I'm hearing the name, but I think the author is it Irving.
It's P. Jelly Clark.
He's
That's-
Clark. Okay, I'm just writing it down.
And what else was I gonna say? Though they don't ignore the fact that there is misogyny and a caste system within Egypt and the Islamic nation and things like that. So he doesn't ignore. It's not all like Village of the Happy People.
It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go back down under to another Australian author. This is This is actually not a small press novel. It was actually done by a major Australian press, and it is available now in the U.S. And the tagline I love, which was the steampunk origin of rock and roll. And essentially, but I discovered Richard Harlan through his submissions to my Tales of the Talisman magazine, and so the fact that he does definitely have some small press ties, but he's very interested in his steampunk, in exploring the whole class problems of the era. And what happens is it's essentially the story of a young woman who ends up basically finding herself stripped of her class and living in the slums and trying to make a life. And through that, they end up basically making music. And she discovers that her classical roots are not really appreciated down in the slums, but finds a way to make music, and it ends up becoming rock and roll, and starts breaking down some of those class barriers. It was just all of his. He's written 3 novels, steampunk novels that are available in the U.S. World Shaker, Liberator, and Song of the Slums. And I would recommend all 3 of those.
Thank you. Now I'm going to have to read those. So Murder on the Titania and Other Steam-Powered Adventures by Alex Axe is my next recommendation. And honestly, I'm so obsessed with these stories that Alex wrote. This is a compilation, a novella and short stories set in the same world with the same sort of cast of characters surrounding the swashbuckling, cheeky heroine, Captain Marta Ramos, who is just, I date her. And also give her tea, and she could rob me, that would be fine. But she has a great cast of side characters who accompany her on her adventures, and a wonderful flirtation with a Scarlet Woman sort of figure who does a bunch of nefarious spy-like things. And so it's just a romp, but it's a wonderful romp. And the first story in this compilation, I was surprised. I did not see it coming, and I'm not bragging, but I usually do see it coming, and often read the end of my novels first, because I don't need spoilers, but I was actually quite surprised, delightfully surprised. It was a great sort of twist. Alex Axe is a great writer, and they are in Colorado, so they have a real feel for the place they're writing about, and they turn some other things on their head. Instead of having airships be supreme, they do some really cool things with this train that can jump like like Tesla's dream of jumping. It's just absurd and also slightly terrifying to read about. I would not want to be on that train, but I liked that it existed in fiction. So, great book. Great sort of, actually, compilation.
All right, last one. The last one on my list is Ink and Bone by Rachel Kane.
Yeah.
And this is actually I think it's 5 books in this series. And it's about if the Great Library of Alexandria had survived. It never was destroyed. And now the Great Library is a presence all over the world. It's in every country. They have daughter libraries in every city, pretty much all over the world. And the catch, though, is that the library controls all the knowledge and all the books. And they keep all of the original books themselves, and they have what's called blanks. I guess kind of like the equivalent of what a tablet would be, but it does have pages. But basically, the words of whatever book you want can be on the pages of your blank. But no one's allowed to actually own original books. And the main character, his name is Jess Brightwell, and his family is book smugglers in this world. And his father decides that since he doesn't want to take over the family business and be a book smuggler, then he should try to become a librarian himself and spy for his family and maybe ease the way a little bit and tell them when the library raids are coming and things like that. So, and it's a really great series and has a lot of amazing characters. This one's for a little bit older kids. Like, I wouldn't give it to maybe 6th graders, on up. But
It's a fantastic read. It's really good. It's
yeah,
gripping.
I love them.
Yeah.
Yeah, my last one we already talked about, the Hunchback Assignment. Trying to think of another one. I mean, it's set in the same time period. I'm not sure I really call it steampunk, but Theodora Goss's The Alchemist.
Oh,
Yes.
This is so
Would
good.
you call them steampunk?
I do.
They're totally steampunk.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, because I almost saw it as more gothic murder mystery.
It's got some mad science. It's close enough.
Yeah, that's true. It does. It does. Yeah, I wasn't quite sure if it did. I have to say, it was another one audiobook I also listened to. I was kind of ambivalent when I was first listening to it because there's sometimes books, when they're on audiobooks, the transitions don't work well when you have it visually. You're like, oh, this is a break, and you get it. And it took a little while to like, oh, now I understand what's happening because there's a breaking of the fourth wall within and listening to an audiobook form. You're going like, has the book started yet? But then once you get into the rhythm of it, it's fine. And it's to boil it down, the daughter of every iconic horror figure in literary history comes together. I mean, we're talking about Dr. Jekyll's daughter, Dr. Hyde's daughter, Mr. Hyde's daughter, Frankenstein, Dr. Moreau, Catherine Moreau, and then there's references, you've got Renfield, you've got, and I almost started laughing in the middle of it because I'm like, okay, who else are we going to dump in here? We're missing a few, and they came.
It's so fun.
But it is a tremendous fun. These women are very dynamic. They're all very different. They all each have their own agendas. And if you listen as an audiobook, just beware, your brain's going to flip a little bit, and then you're going like, oh, okay, I get what's going on here. But I'm sure if you're reading it, it's instantly you're going to go, oh, we're switching sections here. But yeah, I did end up really enjoying it, even after I'm going like, what? Oh, okay. But yeah, even though she kind of threw in the kitchen sink with the iconic characters, it all works out perfectly. And and she does a great job.
It's fantastic.
I also think it's a good one to give to kids because I think it's a good introduction to a lot of those classical characters that might be out of their reach, but they could read this and then later on maybe pick up Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and be like, oh, I remember this concept from.
Yeah, and she balanced using, because Sherlock Holmes and Watson are also in it,
Yeah.
but they're not they're not the major characters, but often when you get someone that bigger than life into your book, it can take over your scene, and it can sometimes take over your book. And I thought she balanced that really well, that they were supporting characters and it didn't become their story, because I can see how that could easily happen because they're so big in their mind. It's like if you bring Einstein or Tesla into a room, they just, as a writer or any kind of writer, they take over the scene. And it's almost, because they're larger than life figures. But yeah, I think she balanced that really well.
It's fantastic book. Yeah.
And I just have to, it's not actually my next recommendation, but I kind of had to laugh because I had that same exact that same exact thought with the last book I just read, which was I finally got around to reading Anno Dracula by Kim Newman, which is that same exact. The premise of that book is, what if Dracula had actually won? And he ends up becoming Prince Consort of the British Empire. Now, Dracula doesn't really ever appear until like the very last chapter of the book, but it's all about, but again, it's just one of these, he throws in like every Victorian vampire you have ever heard of, and I kept going, who's he going to throw in next, you know, including, you know, the cameo by Lestat, you know. It was just a, but yeah, if you haven't read it, I would not really call that that one steampunk. It's very much, you know, Victorian Gothic. But if you like the Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter, Anno Dracula is a lot of fun as well. The last book that's on my list, though, I actually went back to another one of the authors who was a first-year author with me here at Wild Wild WestCon, which was Olivia M.O.M. Gray, and the Zombies of Mesmer. And my recommendations are kind of bookended a little bit in the sense that one reviewer described Beyond the Rails by Jack Tyler as sort of Firefly in a steampunk world. And The Zombies of Mesmer is very much sort of Buffy the Vampire Slayer in a steampunk world. It basically is a vampire hunter in this very Victorian class steampunk world. And again, it's just, you know, it's not a very deep read, but it is a lot of fun if you're kind of looking to scratch that Joss Whedon itch with less Joss Whedon. That's a good place to do that.
I'll give it here. That's excellent shade, my friends. Right, so I wanted to finish my list up with one of my ultimate favorite books, not just in steampunk, but of all the things I've read. And I knew the author was here this weekend, and so I thought I'd actually have met many people who are like, who is that and what have they written? And I'm like, well, her name's Gail Carriger, and she started things up for many of us with Soulless. I could have picked so many of the books from this world that Gail has written, but Soulless is what started it out for me. And so I thought that was a really good place to start with a recommendation. And, you know, I am a huge fan. And so it's a little bit hard for me to do anything other than fangirl. But for me, one of the things I love about this work is that it is full of whimsy and comedy and, you know, situations that revolve around manners. And, you know, that is my kind of humor. And humor is not often a thing you find in steampunk. And as a steampunk humorist, I'm sort of like, oh, look! There's comedy here! So exciting! I love that! It's more than comedy, although I would say comedy is one of the hardest things for me to read successfully because it's hard to write successfully. And so finding such stellar comedy is such a joy. But also the characters took up a lot of space in my heart and my psyche because they're so well developed. I feel as though I could meet them. And perhaps in my little kitty brain I have, a little psychosis there. But there's also a lot of tea. Excellent fashions, excellent fashion. The hats are their own character. There's this tremendous community of fans that you get to fall into once you have been infected with a love of Gail Carriger's works. So that's also waiting for you. But do make yourself a cup of tea when you're reading these. Maybe have some scones nearby, otherwise you're going to start craving treacle tart. And that is, that's a dark path, my friends. So be prepared. All right, that's my last recommendation. I think we've all gone through our list. So I'm just going to check our lead time. We have just a few moments before we're terrible and must scamper. But first of all, thank you all for agreeing to this.
Thank you.
Thank you for organizing.
My pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure. I love reading, and I'm so ecstatic to be here with two authors that I really also love reading. So that's pretty cool. But if you had anything you'd like to share, maybe about either how you find good steampunk books or what you look for in a good steampunk book, or both. I'm ambivalent about it. You don't have to do either or. David?
How I find, the way I found a lot of my good first steampunk was by cheating, by actually owning a magazine and collecting submissions. That's sort of not a route for everyone as far as timing. But I will say that going out and supporting small press magazines that might have a variety of people who you might not see in every anthology out there, or looking at small press publishers that publish a variety of anthologies that feature a variety of different authors is really a good way. If you go through their short stories, you often will find authors that, I really like that story, I want to go read something more of them. And many of the people on my list, that basically is that's the short form of how I discovered them. And I would say Danielle Ackley McPhail's eSpec Books is a good place to start, as just a place to go look for such anthologies. She is, like I say, she is currently running she's running a Kickstarter for a set of ghost stories right now, an anthology of ghost stories, but she's the publisher of Gaslight and Grim and Afterpunk, which I've had stories in, two very good steampunk anthologies, and she's very up on promoting steampunk. In fact, Bill Bodden recommended her novel. Let me see if I can find his page quickly.
All the way. Okay.
She really should be reaching out to me, David.
Yes.
She should be reaching out to me on Kickstarter. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Baba Ali and the Clockwork Gin by
fantastic.
Danielle and Day Al-Muhammad is a highly recommended book.
Fantastic.
Yeah, actually, the reason why I say that is that I've run 10 Kickstarters, and so I, for the comics and for the audio drama that we just recently finished, and in the comics world, we do a lot of cross-promoting in the indie comics world. We're very proactive. We all know each other, and unfortunately, the novel and short story and anthology, prose anthology, isn't quite as large, and so that's why I'm saying what happens is that when I do an update, someone approaches me like, can you basically plug my Kickstarter on your next update? And if I have room and can schedule it, I say sure, and that will go in front of my 900 plus backers, and they'll possibly will back it. Anyway, it's a great way to promote.
Thank you.
But she has to contact me.
I'm encouraged.
Yes.
Of course, being a full-time health professional and
Oh yeah,
a
that's
publisher
a little
is,
tough. It's a little tough. I know, it's hard. It's very hard.
Anyway, I see a hand in the back.
Yes.
Madame Askew,
Yes.
Oh.
Excellent. Great question. So, do you follow my social medias at all? All right.
Go do that.
All right. You just met me today. Fantastic. Well, good job, you. So, first of all, I'd say go to the fan table for the Temporal Entourage. It has a QR code, which will take you to a link tree with a ton of links. So book club, I always post it to Facebook. I talk about it in our Discord server. I post about it on our websites. You do not have to be on Facebook, but you do need to be digital. And I have not quite made the jump to newsletter, but I probably need to. I'm realizing. So, but if you follow me through one of those means, you will get notifications. It happens every third Sunday of every month, except for March because of this convention, frankly, and December because there are holidays in December, I hear. And it's always at 4:30 p.m. Seattle Pacific time. We don't set it to Arizona time because then I have to change the time zones for everyone else, and I'm lazy. So we meet on Zoom. And I live stream it as well. So all of our book clubs for the last 2 years are archived. And then I review books from the book club Fridays on TikTok, like a sort of a fascinating Gen Xer on the TikToks. So I hope that answers your question.
Your website is?
Oh, so sorry. www.madameaskew, like my hat.com.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Yes, sir.
Yes, I need a book recommendation. I can't find books that are like The Difference Engine by Gibson.
Oh.
Oh.
Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, yes, David.
It's not actually a novel, but I was going to say.
It's a textbook.
No, it's the Babbage and Sidney Paddua's comic that she did. It's actually a very annotated comic. It's actually Loveless and Babbage, but if you looked up Loveless and Babbage by Padua, they're basically it's basically a comic, but she does but she's also a computer scientist. And she's talked a lot about the early days of Babbage engines, what they could do, imagines what they might have done if they had actually been developed. And it was all published as a graphic novel. And I'm sorry I can't remember the exact title of it, but if you look up Loveless and Babbage by Padua, you should be able to find it.
Thank you.
Before you go, if you want our book recommendations, we have printouts of them here that have the titles, authors, and synopsis.
And we'll put what's left at the Temple Entourage table. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
To our next panel, we apologize for running over a bit. We're scampering now.
I think the panelist nest is ours.
Yeah. Oh! I'll just sit.
Thank you for listening to the Creative Play and Podcast Network. And feel free to enjoy our other shows, such as D&D Journey of the 5th Edition and Scion Ragnarok and Roll, a Scion hero to Ragnarok story. Thank you for listening.